today that, statistically speaking, you're probably already an expert on in your own right. You know it, you might have a complicated relationship with it, you'd never bring it up to your mom, your friends, or at a party, but I would. It's porn. More specifically, we're going to be talking about the millions of women who watch gay male porn. Ooh. We're going to be watching about the millions of women who watch gay male porn. For the past 2 years, gay male porn has been the second most popular category for women to watch on Pornhub, one of the largest online porn sites in the world. And as a self-identified woman who has partaken in the male-on-male pornography a time or two in her life, I found this data to be extremely validating. But it also made me wonder whether other women were drawn to gay male porn for the same reasons that I was drawn to gay male porn. When I was a teenager, I exclusively watched gay male porn because it allowed me to actually see men in porn instead of just disembodied penises, and I could enjoy myself without having to sort through videos of women being humiliated and abused. Depictions of sex that made me uncomfortable and upset, which isn't super ideal for masturbation. So when I had to choose the topic for my honors college thesis, the culmination of my college career, I of course chose this topic, so I would have an excuse to talk about it in public. Two of the primary questions I had going into my thesis were, why are so many women choosing to watch gay male porn, where a woman's pleasure is not even taken into consideration? And could this trend be representative of barriers between women and straight pornography? While I would love to push 80 pages of thesis into 18 minutes, I initially tried, I'm only going to be talking about some of the most important facets of my paper today, which are that public discussion around gender and sex can really affect how we interpret pornography, and we as porn consumers have the power to impact the industry by just incorporating sex positivity into our everyday lives. So, as you might expect, there isn't a huge body of research on women in gay male porn. Total bummer. Thankfully, though, there is a wonderful woman from Middlesex University who has her priorities in order. Last year, Lucy Neville published a research study entitled Male Gaze and the Female Gaze: Why Women Love Male-on-Male Pornography. And this study looked into the responses of 275 self-identified women of varying sexualities and 26 different nationalities on why they loved gay male porn. Over 70% of the respondents said that identified as either straight, bisexual, or pansexual. And now might be a good time to recognize that we are not going to be answering the question, why do women watch pornography today? In fact, we are never going to answer that question because there is no answer to that question. Because shockingly, not all women are the same. So while we talk about why some women love gay male porn, we need to recognize that we all have varying aspects of our identities that affect our sexual desires. And today we're only going to be talking about a subset of women. This isn't a prescription, it's a conversation starter. And as these women talked about why they loved gay male porn, they simultaneously identified what they hated about straight porn. For these women, gay male porn offered them something that straight porn always failed to measure up to: a space free of gender anxiety. Essentially, watching a man and a woman have sex is a lot more stressful than watching a man and a man have sex. But why? Where was this stress coming from? While there are plenty of problematic to downright oppressive narratives in pornography that contribute to this stress, there's actually something at work here that isn't straight porn's fault. In fact, I argue that gay male porn's popularity with women has less to do with what's actually happening in the porn and more to do with how we talk about gender, sex, and pornography in our everyday lives. When we usually talk about porn, we talk about what porn's doing wrong, how porn can change, how porn influences us. But what some people don't understand is that porn is a two-way street. Whenever we sit down to watch pornography, we are bringing all of our individual experiences to the table. And those individual lenses that we can have affect how we interpret what's going on in the scene. So, if I'm going to talk to you about the second most popular category for women to watch online, I should probably come clean about the other fan favorites. For context, Pornhub receives over 20 billion visits every single year, with 24% of that traffic being female visitors. The top categories for women to watch in 2015 were lesbian, obviously, gay male, big dick, teen, with four-woman pornography actually sitting in 8th place. Given this ranking, the first question that people always ask me is, why aren't you talking about lesbian porn? But here's the thing about lesbian porn. While lesbian porn and gay male porn both center on same-sex gender relations, lesbian porn has a dominant presence within the straight pornography market. I chose to analyze gay male porn's female audience because gay male porn is distinctly and purposefully disconnected from the straight pornography space. And it doesn't include women, nor is it intended for women. And these factors are actually what make it so appealing. Two of the primary reasons that the women in Neville's study said they loved gay male porn was that gay male porn helped them avoid the sexual minefield of exploitation and objectification of women in pornography. And it also was just more authentic. These two things are actually very related. So let's dive into that sexual minefield for a second. How many of you have heard of the quote, "Porn is the industry, rape is the practice"? Yeah? So this gem and completely incorrect quote was coined by Robin Morgan during the 1980s feminist porn wars. The rhetoric used by anti-porn feminists at the time was that porn is inherently degrading and violent towards women. And this piggybacked off of a gendered myth that male sexuality is categorically different from female sexuality. And that's the idea that women don't want to be having that kind of sex. And no woman in her right mind would be involved in pornography. This kind of language that we still see today completely strips female porn performers of their agency and of their voices. The dominant language around female porn performers is that they are exploited, coerced, and abused. And it doesn't leave very much room to hear stories from sex workers that are actually enjoying their work. And that doesn't mean that these stories aren't out there. In 2012, the damaged good hypothesis was actually put to the test when the responses of 177 porn actresses were compared to a matched group based on age, ethnicity, and marital status. And in terms of psychological characteristics, porn actresses are doing better than most of us. Porn actresses had higher levels of self-esteem, positive feelings, social support, sexual satisfaction, and spirituality. So remember when I told you that our individual histories can affect how we interpret porn? When we have been told for decades that essentially all of the women in porn are powerless, we are going to be bringing that into our individual interpretations of the porn. And it's going to make it really hard to believe the female porn performers on the screen. Interestingly, Neville's respondents said they also found gay male porn to be exploitative and objectifying, but this was less of a problem because the men on the screen were perceived to have the ability to push off their partner or stop an action they didn't like. When we watch male porn performers, we assume that they have control, that they wanted to be there, and that they are enjoying themselves. And that's because we associate agency with both individuals in the scene. It makes everything seem more authentic and pleasurable for everyone involved. It also implies that we can watch violent and rough acts in straight porn and be uncomfortable, and then switch on over to gay male porn and see the exact same acts and be perfectly okay with it. On top of these gender relations, we also have the fact that Neville's respondents said watching female porn performers was uncomfortable because of unhealthy expectations on women's bodies. So instead of wading through a straight pornography site trying to find a video that somehow overcomes all of these anxieties, it is arguably much easier to just hop on over to a gay male porn site where you know there's going to be a multitude of stress-free options because you know women will not be in them. And plus, you get the added bonus of actually having the men as the erotic object instead of the disembodied dick buffet that I was talking about earlier. So, who cares? That, right? Like, who cares that women love gay male porn? We shouldn't be dictating what women watch. And I am totally 100% on board with you about that. But the reason why this porn trend is important is it not only emphasizes how alienating the straight pornography industry can be, but also how toxic our own understandings of gender can be to our erotic spaces. Porn is one of the only places where we can actually witness sex. And until we get our stuff together about comprehensive sex education, it will continue to be the influential role modeling force. And porn is an extension of our sexual expression. I want women to feel empowered and at least be given the option to be represented in porn without feeling uncomfortable and attacked. For women who are attracted to men, this isn't just a nice option we aren't being served. It is a missed educational and sexual opportunity to test out our fantasies. For some women, having a man and a woman in the porn scene is a disruption, which makes making straight pornography a little difficult since that inherently has to be a part of the process. And while I appreciate mainstream porn's attempt at throwing us a bone with for-women pornography, this isn't what we should be aiming for. In the words of sex educator Tristan Taramino, the dominant view within the industry is that women want softer, gentler porn. And this both reflects and reinforces stereotypes about female sexuality, right? We want romance and flowers and pretty lighting and nothing too hard. And that may be true for some women, but not for all of us. While I appreciate that for-women pornography finally gives me a chance to see some decent cunnilingus, this speaks to a very narrow definition of female sexuality. More importantly, it speaks to a very narrow definition of white female sexuality. The for-women pornography space can be just as alienating and unrepresentative as for women of color as the hetero male space. Thomas Waugh once defined gay male porn's ideological essence as one of sex-positive attitudes and a challenge to masculinity, which is awesome. But we need to recognize that gay male porn perpetuates the exact same racial stereotypes that we condemn straight pornography for. And gay male porn is only so accessible, and it has the ability to be so popular with women because it profits from the same institutions that force women's pleasure into silence and forces extremely important genres into silence. There is currently a genre that is actively working to create non-oppressive erotic spaces that we aren't hearing about. Feminist porn is awesome, and it's not an oxymoron. Feminist porn is a growing body of pornography that is dedicated to positive and diverse representations, collaboration with porn performers, ethical working conditions, and pleasure for everyone, not just men. It doesn't just pander to one definition of female sexuality because it's not just for women. Everyone can benefit from feminist pornography. And because it actively challenges depictions of race, gender, and other identity markers, it's actually addressing the determinants of the anxieties that women experience when they're watching pornography. But, big but, as I've discussed throughout this entire talk, my fellow porn lovers, ask not what porn can do for you. Ask what you can do for porn. In order for feminist pornography to even make it onto our radars, in order for porn production practices to change, we have to put in work. We have to create a society where that is possible. The only way to ungender pornography is by addressing the social inequalities and sex-negative culture that surround pornography. You can help create empowering erotic spaces every single day, and you might be doing it now and not even realize it. If you are currently challenging the white cis heteropatriarchy, congratulations, you are planting the seeds for inclusive, non-oppressive erotic spaces. But my request is that this isn't passive. My request is that we actively bring the porn industry into our activism. Porn is only talked about as if it can only be heterosexual, violent, damaging, and as if women can only be objects or perverted. We cannot continue to ignore this industry, condemn it in public spaces, and then go home to do what we do. Know that when you fight for the lives and rights of sex performers, you are fighting for better porn for yourself. And making and viewing pornography are political acts that are just as valid and valuable as other forms of activism. Gay male porn's female audience is both representative of problems within our society about how we talk about gender and sex, but it's also an erotic solution for millions of women who just want to get off. By opening up our conversations about pornography and thinking about all of the outside influences that affect our erotic spaces, we can start to identify these factors and start to recognize all the different steps that we can take to create better porn environments. One of those steps you might choose to take is to read the rest of my thesis, which is conveniently located on my Twitter bio, along with an appendix of all the feminist porn you could need. But at least for today's conversation, I'll leave you with a quote from feminist author Wendy McElroy. She once said, "Pornography is one of the windows through which women glimpse the sexual possibilities that are open to them. It is nothing more or less than freedom of speech applied to the sexual realm." I look forward to the day when porn invites all identities to the table, and we as a society agree to help make that happen. Until then, masturbate mindfully and talk about porn. Thank you.